The bank is not losing sleep over your credit card balance. It is celebrating it. I know that sounds like something a bitter person posts on the internet, so let me show you what I mean, because this is not a theory. This is a revenue model, and I spent a long time in the middle of it before I understood how it actually worked. You have probably felt some version of this. The month where nothing unusual happened, no vacation, no big purchase, nothing you could point to, and you still ended up exactly where you started. Or the slow creep where your car payment and your rent together started taking up more of your paycheck than you ever consciously agreed to. Or the moment you open your banking app, look at the number, and just close it again because looking at it feels worse than not looking. That feeling is not a personal failure. That feeling is the product working correctly. Today, I want to walk you through 5 financial decisions that look completely normal, feel completely normal, are treated as completely normal, and show you exactly who profits from each one, what the business model looks like from their side of the table, and what you can do differently. Not heroically differently, just differently enough to stop funding someone else's revenue and start building your own. And I want to flag one thing before we start. There is one of these 5 that I did not understand until I ran the actual math on my own situation, and the number that came out of that afternoon changed how I think about every financial decision I make. We'll get to it. There are 5 areas where the system's defaults are designed specifically around your behavior and not in your favor. Let's go through all of them. The first is the credit card. Not whether you have one. What happens to the money when you carry a balance and pay the minimum? Here is the number that matters. The average American household carrying credit card debt owes about $11,149. The average interest rate on that debt right now is around 22 to 23%. Those two numbers together create a math problem that most people never actually sit down and run. If you owe $11,000 on a credit card at 23% interest and you make only the minimum payment every month, it will take approximately 22 years to pay it off. And you will spend $18,500 in interest alone. You borrowed $11,000. You will hand the bank back nearly $30,000. Now here's what I want you to sit with, because this is the part that changes how you think about it. The credit card company is not worried about that $11,000. It is not a problem for them. It is a product for them. They issued you that card knowing statistically that a certain percentage of cardholders would carry a balance. And at 23% interest, a carried balance is one of the most reliable revenue streams in financial services. It compounds automatically. It grows without any additional effort from the bank after the moment you decide not to pay in full. It is, from their perspective, nearly perfect recurring income. The minimum payment is not a repayment plan. It is a subscription fee for your debt. Every month you make it, you are paying mostly interest and almost nothing toward the actual balance. The debt barely moves. The bank collects again, and the month after that, and the month after that, for 22 years. Here is what actually moves the needle. You do not need to pay it all at once. You need to stop treating the minimum as the target. Paying double the minimum on an $11,000 balance at 23% cuts your payoff time from 22 years to under 5. That is 17 years of the bank's revenue stream that you just ended. It is the single highest return financial move most people have available to them because no investment reliably returns 23% a year, but eliminating 23% debt does. The second is the car payment. Specifically, what happens when the loan term gets extended to make the monthly number feel manageable? The average new car payment right now is $772 a month. 1 in 5 buyers is paying over $1,000, and nearly 1 in 4 new car loans is now 84 months, 7 years. 7 years of payments on a vehicle that will be worth roughly 40% of what you paid for it when the loan ends. Here's how the math on a 7-year loan actually works. On a $40,000 vehicle at 7% interest, a 60-month loan costs you about $7,500 in interest. Extend that same loan to 84 months, and your interest cost climbs to $10,700. The monthly payment dropped by roughly $190 a month. The total cost went up by more than $3,000. You paid more, for longer, for a car worth less. But here's the business model underneath that, because it is genuinely elegant in the worst possible way. Edmunds, one of the most trusted sources for automotive market data, has noted that longer loan terms are primarily used to make monthly payments feel manageable, not to reduce total cost. The dealership's finance department knows that you are looking at the monthly number, not the total, so they extend the term. The monthly number comes down, you feel relief, the total goes up, they close the deal. Everyone goes home except you, who goes home with a 7-year commitment. And here is the mechanism that keeps this cycle running indefinitely. Nearly 30% of all trade-ins right now are underwater, meaning the owner owes more on the car than it is worth. The average gap is about $7,200. When you trade that car in, the dealer rolls that $7,200 into your new loan. You are not starting fresh. You are starting your new 7-year loan $7,200 behind before you leave the lot. The term gets extended again to keep the payment feeling manageable. 3 years later, you are underwater again. The dealership calls this a repeat buyer, which is accurate. What they do not say is that the repeat was not really a choice. It was the math. The way out of this is simpler than it sounds. Buy used, keep the loan under 60 months, and do not trade in a vehicle you still owe more on than it's worth unless you can cover the gap yourself. None of that is extreme. It just requires knowing the full cost before you sit down, rather than after you sign. The third is subscriptions, and I want to start here with a scene because the number that follows it lands differently once you felt it. Picture a Saturday morning. You are going through your bank statement looking for something else entirely. Maybe checking a charge from a restaurant, maybe verifying your rent cleared. And you see it, a recurring charge for something you do not recognize. You Google it. It is a fitness app you signed up for during a free trial 14 months ago. You have not opened it once. It has been drafting $14.99 from your account every single month for over a year. That is $179 in total for an app you forgot you had. Now multiply that by 2 or 3, because that is what the data says most people are carrying. The average person estimates they spend about $86 a month on subscriptions. The actual average is around $219 a month. That is not a rounding error. That is more than $100 every month in spending that is functionally invisible, flowing out of accounts quietly, automatically, without triggering the mental alarm that a single $150 charge would. The subscription industry has a specific word for the revenue they collect from customers who forgot they signed up. The word is breakage. It appears in financial reports. It is modeled into growth projections. For many subscription businesses, it is a meaningful and predictable line item in their revenue model. The free trial requires a credit card. The renewal is automatic. The cancellation process is buried. The charge is small enough to stay below the threshold where most people act. It is designed to collect without drawing attention. 42% of subscribers are currently paying for at least one subscription they are not using at all. Nearly half. Not cutting back on, not using less, not using at all. Here is the fix, and it takes about 15 minutes once. Go through your last 2 months of bank and credit card statements and find every recurring charge. Decide deliberately whether each one stays. The average person doing this finds around $75 a month they did not know they were losing. That is $900 a year. Put that $900 into a low-cost index fund every year for 25 years at a historically average 8% return, and it becomes roughly $70,000. Not from doing something impressive, from stopping something invisible. We are just past the halfway point, and what is coming in the second half is where this gets more personal and the stakes get higher. Next, we are going to look at the housing transaction, specifically what every single person in that room is paid to do on closing day, and why none of their financial interests are pointing in the same direction as yours. And then we are going to talk about the one that changed how I think about everything, which is the retirement pause. Because the number that comes out of stopping contributions for just 18 months is something almost nobody actually sits down and calculates. Stay with me. The fourth is the housing transaction, and I want to be precise about what I'm talking about, because this is not about whether to buy a home. That is a different conversation entirely. This is about what happens inside the purchase transaction itself, and whose financial interests are actually aligned with yours in that room on the day you sign. Let's go through everyone at the table. Your buyer's agent is paid a commission, typically around 2.5 to 3% of the purchase price. On a $400,000 home, that is $10,000 to $12,000 paid at closing. That commission is calculated as a percentage of what you spend. The Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond published a formal analysis of this structure and described it as a misaligned incentive. The buyer's agent is paid more when their client pays more, not less. They are not financially motivated to find you the cheaper house. The mortgage broker is paid at closing, not when your payment is still comfortable in 3 years if one of you takes a pay cut. At closing. The bank collects interest for 30 years regardless of whether the house fit your actual financial situation. A borrower who stretches to qualify and carries the loan to term is more profitable than one who refinances out of it in 8 years because their income grew. The home inspector charges the same fee whether the house is a dream or a money pit. Their business depends on transactions completing, not on transactions falling through. Not one person in that room is financially motivated to tell you the house costs too much. They are all paid when the deal closes. You go home to the mortgage. So what actually protects you here is not finding the right agent and trusting them. It is running the math yourself before you make an offer. Not the pre-approval number. Not what the agent says is competitive for the neighborhood. The actual number. What does this payment look like if one income drops for 6 months? What does it look like with property taxes and insurance added in? What is the realistic monthly cost, including maintenance? Those questions have answers. No one in that room is going to volunteer them, but they are your questions to ask, and asking them early is the only thing that changes your position in that transaction. Most of the people in that room are genuinely good at their jobs and are trying to help. This is not about bad actors. It is about a structure where everyone else's financial finish line is different from yours. And knowing that going in is the only advantage you have. The fifth is the retirement pause. And this one is different in kind from everything we've covered because the others are fixable. Credit card debt you can attack. A bad car loan you can survive and do differently next time. But the retirement savings you did not put in during your 30s, those years are just gone. The compounding that would have happened inside them never happened. There is no catching up on time. I want to tell you the number, and then I want to tell you how I found out about it. If you contribute $500 a month into a retirement account starting at age 30, earning an average 8% annual return, you will have approximately $745,000 at 65. Now pause that contribution for just 18 months, somewhere in your 30s, and restart. The math says you lose somewhere around $130,000 in final balance. Not from the 18 months of missed contributions themselves, which total $9,000, but from the compounding those dollars would have done for the following 25 to 30 years. You lose $130,000 because you missed $9,000. That ratio is the part nobody tells you. I know this number because I ran it on my own situation. I paused contributions for a few months during a year when things got tight, told myself I was being responsible about cash flow, and did not think much about it. It was only later, when I actually sat down with a compound interest calculator and traced the cost forward to retirement, that I understood what those months actually cost. It was not a dramatic moment. It was just a quiet, uncomfortable afternoon of math. The financial services industry has no structural incentive to come find you when you pause and remind you to restart. Your 401k provider collects fees whether you are contributing or not. The reminder is not coming. So here is the only thing that actually works. Automation. Set up the day you pause. Most 401k platforms let you schedule a future contribution restart. Use it. Set the date before you close the screen. Because relying on yourself to remember to restart during whatever period of life made you pause in the first place is asking a lot. The automation does the one thing the industry will not. Now let me pull all of this together because there is one thing every single one of these has in common. And once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. Every default in the financial system, the minimum payment, the extended loan term, the auto-renewing free trial, the pre-approval at the top of your range, the retirement contribution that pauses and somehow never quite restarts, is a choice that someone made deliberately. And in every single case, the person who benefits from you accepting that default is not you. That is not cynicism. That is just the business model. And the only defense against the business model is knowing it exists before you are inside it. You do not have to be a financial expert to come out of this okay. You do not have to earn more or deprive yourself or become a different kind of person. You just have to want to know what the game actually is before you keep playing it. Because the people doing fine financially are not smarter than you. They just stop taking the defaults. If this kind of conversation is useful to you, the real mechanics, not the inspirational posters, I do this every week. Subscribe and you won't miss what's next. And I want to ask you something genuinely because I'm curious. Of these five, the credit card minimum, the car payment trap, the subscription bleed, the housing transaction, or the retirement pause, which one hit closest to home? Drop it in the comments. Because the answer is different for everyone, and it tells you exactly where your starting point is.